Before we get started today, I want to tell you all about my new favorite podcast. It's hosted by a frequent guest on the pod. You know her, you love her, our good pal Sequoia Simone, along with cheese expert Olivia Vessel, and it's called You Pot It, Dude. From the title, you can probably glean that this is a Mary Kate and Ashley rewatch podcast where Sequoia and Olivia are covering all of the twins' feature length films, starting with the absolutely wild New York Minute. Their New York Minute coverage is available now, and you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch it because it's a video podcast on Spotify and YouTube. I highly recommend watching it because they have the most magnificent set with huge nostalgia vibes, and they wear the cutest matching embroidered overalls. My personal favorite item on their set is the gallery wall with what appear to be photos from a classic 90s department store photo shoot of Sequoia and Olivia in said matching overalls. It's fantastic. So go check out You Pot It Dude wherever you get your podcasts and in full video on Spotify and YouTube. Now, without further ado, here is the first episode of season 5 of Pod and Prejudice, covering chapters 1 and 2 of Mansfield Park.
Season 5?
Season 5?
Season 5!
Season 5?
Hey, season 5! Oh my god, we've been doing this for 5 seasons.
We've been doing this for 5 seasons, and actually this month,
6 years.
6 years. In 1 week, it'll be 6 years.
Oh my god, our podcast is going to kindergarten.
Oh my god. Well, what's insane is I said that in our Discord, and people were like, yeah, I started your podcast when I had a newborn, and they're in 1st grade now.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
There's also people who've been listening to our podcast since high school that are graduated college now, which
No way.
is insane.
They grow up so fast.
I know. Crazy. So if you've been here the whole time, we love you. If you're new, we love you too.
And welcome.
And all that to say, this is Becca.
This is Molly.
We are here to talk about Jane Austen.
We're here to talk about Mansfield Park.
It's Mansfield Park, everybody. We're on season 5 of this podcast. Listeners, if you're new here, I, Becca, have read many Jane Austen novels through my life.
And I, Molly, am reading her for the first time through this podcast.
If you want to hear Molly read through Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, or Persuasion for the first time, you can listen to seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 of this podcast, respectively. But that is not what we're doing here today.
No, today, listeners, we are talking about Mansfield Park. This is episode 1 of season 5 of Pod and Prejudice.
Yes, and the listeners have been particularly excited for this one. I think because we've been teasing it so hard. So you guys have already started to hear some of my thoughts on Mansfield Park. Molly's heard none of my thoughts on Mansfield Park.
0.
Which is very funny because there are thousands and thousands of people who now know what I'm going to say when I talk you through this. And then on the other hand, you are walking in very fresh on this one, right?
I literally know nothing about this book.
And what a start, obviously.
I'm excited.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Before we dive in, I wanted to give some first impressions.
Okay.
As the first draft of Pride and Prejudice might call it, of what I think this book is going to be about based on the cover.
Sure.
The cover of my book, to describe it to our listeners, has 2 women wearing fancy dresses with fur necklines and muffs. One in blue, one in white. And they're facing away from each other, and the one in blue has feathers on her bonnet and is looking side-eye at the woman in white.
I've not seen this cover before. We'll have to post a photo of it with whatever our meme is for the week.
Yes, and listeners, if you are interested in which version I have, it is the Vintage Classics. It's a 2025 edition, so it was just released. And Vintage Books is a division of Penguin Random House LLC. So that's what I have. I feel like, and this may be a hot take, and listeners, if you're new here, I will always try to make it gay.
Yes.
This looks very gay from the cover. The way that the woman in blue is looking back at the woman in white, it's loaded with jealousy and longing. Additionally, they're wearing something white and something blue.
Very wedding-y.
Yeah, perhaps something borrowed. Definitely something old.
Well, this isn't a spoiler because it has nothing to do with the book, but it is interesting because traditionally and I think this came about in the Victorian era, so this would predate this tradition. White dresses were for weddings of virgins, and blue dresses were for weddings of non-virgins. So, in this time period, it wouldn't have been a thing because I think this came into being in the Victorian era. But again, I get a lot of my costume stuff wrong, so feel free to correct me, listeners. But if you watch like the original Yours, Mine, and Ours with Lucille Ball
Mm.
and Henry Fonda, they get married in that, and she's like a widow. So she's had children already, and she gets married in a blue dress.
Is that why the something borrowed, something blue became a thing?
I have no idea.
Hang on, everybody. This rhyme dates back to Victorian England
Mm-hmm.
and seems to signify the simultaneous hope for continuity and a fresh beginning. The color blue is representative of fidelity and love's purity. It was also a popular color to wear prior to the white wedding dress trend. Tavares says it's meant to represent an item to baffle the evil eye. So maybe the something borrowed, something blue doesn't stem from this and is just like a completely separate thing. But that being said, this is giving
Gay.
gay.
And obviously, we're going to get into it, but the first few chapters of this book are obviously quite different than any of the other chapters that open any other Jane Austen novel we've read so far.
Yeah, because it starts with 30 years ago,
Yes.
which is not something that has really happened.
So I don't want to give too much away about like things coming up because it's going to say so, but it is interesting only because Fanny is not 30.
No. So I've done the math. So 30 years ago, and maybe this is a good spot to get into it. 30 years ago
yes.
is when Maria Ward gets married
Mhm.
to Sir Thomas Bertram. So she gets married, and then 6 years later, her older sister gets married to a Mr. Norris. And so that means that that's 24 years ago,
Okay.
quote unquote. Then after Frances, the younger sister, gets married, at least I think she's the younger sister, 11 years pass where they don't talk, which would then make that 13 years, quote unquote, ago. And then I think that since when we get to it, Fanny comes, she's 10, I think that the bulk of the story is going to happen when she's 23.
Bulk of the story is actually going to happen when she's like 17, 18.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then why this 30 years ago math? Maybe Frances gets married a few years after.
I think
Mrs.
that has
Norris.
to be it. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be that much longer. It would just be like 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Anyway, that was a quick overview of what's about to happen in the first chapter, but
most important thing is that this story starts well before the events that will transpire for the rest of the story, which starts with the generation prior to the one that we'll be following closely in the book.
Exactly. So Maria Ward gets married to Sir Thomas Bertram, who is the baronet of Mansfield Park.
Yes, he is.
My first thought is that she's a gold digger, social climber, because everyone is like, oh my God, she did so well for herself. She married so well. She doesn't even have enough money to deserve this. Like, she has 7,000. She would need at least 10,000 for this to be
a reasonable match.
Exactly. So she did good.
Yeah.
Her older sister, Miss Ward, marries Bertram's friend, Mr. Norris, whom he gives a living as the
clergyman,
like the Mr. Collins.
Yeah, exactly.
Miss Frances, who is the younger sister,
does the thing that nobody else in Jane Austen does.
She marries for love.
We have a real poor person.
Yeah.
Because someone married for love without money.
She married a lieutenant.
Yes. I think this one's really interesting to read pretty immediately after Persuasion.
Yeah.
Because I think this is a good picture of what Lady Russell was fearing for Anne Elliot.
Yeah. She marries for love with no money to someone who doesn't really have a chance of getting it.
Yes. And not only that, not only does he not have a chance of getting it, his upward mobility is stunted just because of who he is as a person. So immediately we have 3 sisters, all in the same exact circumstance at birth, who make 3 very different matches.
Why is his upward mobility stunted?
For who he is as a person?
Yeah.
It kind of touches on this, but the guy likes his booze.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, he's like
he stunts his own upward mobility.
Yeah, he's sort of a ne'er-do-well.
Yeah. So Bertram, Sir Thomas, has quote unquote interest that he could use to pull for his wife's sisters, but it says that he couldn't even help a lieutenant. Like, a lieutenant's beyond help. Does interest in this case mean like social pull or like literal money that he could have helped with?
I think it's probably a combo. I think interest here probably does refer to, like, the debts that he's collecting.
Mm,
But I think, like, it's very clear Sir Thomas is extremely well connected and extremely wealthy,
yes.
and he can use both to help, but basically he cannot put, Mr. Price into a position in society that's sort of acceptable.
Right.
He can't raise him.
Gotcha. Fanny doesn't tell her sisters until she's actually married because she knows that they're going to disapprove.
Yes.
And when she writes to them, Mrs. Norris writes a very mean letter back.
Mhm.
And Fanny writes a letter back, also being mean and insulting Sir Thomas. And they basically get in this little back and forth. And
There's a big dot, dot, dot bubbles, like, popping up in, like, paragraph texts and,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah,
drafts in the notes
yeah.
sections of the apps.
Yeah. And so the sisters become estranged.
Yes, they do.
It's here that we learn that Mrs. Norris is a gossip because it was the exact wording was something like she wrote such things about Sir Thomas that Mrs. Norris could not possibly keep to herself.
Yes, that's exactly, and she's not only a gossip, she's a shit stirrer because she's telling Sir
She
Thomas.
loves to stir the shit.
Oh, Mrs. Norris loves the drama, and
Yes.
you can see that pretty immediately.
Yes. So they don't talk for 11 years
Mhm.
and they live far enough away that they don't even hear about each other, except for when Mrs. Norris comes with news that Fanny has got another child.
Yes, which
So,
happens a lot.
and somehow, like, where is she getting this information from? Is she like just around the town asking people or?
Yeah, so they're in Portsmouth. I don't know where that is in relation to Mansfield Park, but it's a little ways away, but it's implied that they're not so far away that they can't go, like, to town to see.
Sure.
So I think people are asking after each other.
Gotcha. Eventually, Fanny has too many children. She's on her ninth.
In 11 years, which nightmare
Yeah,
scenario in my personal opinion.
truly. And her husband is disabled from service. Is he literally disabled? Because this is a question that has come up a couple times of Austen and disability and how her disabled characters are represented.
I don't actually know if it's like physical disability, injured in war or just discharged, but I think it would be injured in war
That's what I was
and
getting to.
unable to like provide for his family.
So they don't have income coming in. He's
Mm-mm.
still spending all his money on booze
Yes.
and company.
Yes.
So Fanny is in a desperate position.
Yeah. And she has 9 mouths to feed.
Yes, 8 plus 1 on the way.
Yes.
And so she is now, quote unquote, eager to regain the friendship she had so carelessly sacrificed.
Yes. We meet Frances Ward when she is a young woman, fiery, passionate, and in love enough to throw everything away for the man she dreamed of.
Mm-hmm.
We see her 11 years later as Fanny Price, the senior, unable to live with the consequences of the decisions she made. A deadbeat husband, 9 children, no money, no prospects.
A burden to her parents, and she's frightened.
Well, her parents aren't, she's not a burden to her parents, but she's about to become a burden to her sisters.
Yes. I will say that I'm on the side of Fanny here in that I don't think she carelessly threw away her friendship with her sisters. I
Mhm.
think that I mean, she married for love, but they were very rude about it.
They sure were. And well, I think the throwing away of the connection was not necessarily the yelling at each other. It was also the actual marrying of the man she loved in the first place.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, that, and they were like, how could she?
Exactly.
So she writes to Lady Bertram, who is the middle sister, Mariah,
Mhm.
and she asks for money and a job for her 10-year-old boy. She's very desperate. She's got a 10-year-old. She's like, what can he become a clergyman? Can he become nothing's beneath him. Can he clean your clothes? Like,
Yeah.
and the letter works, actually. They're very flattered. They're appealed to, and they send money and baby clothes and some advice for the kid. But it's just simply not enough for Mrs. Norris. She just can't get her sister out of her head.
And this is a an incredible scene that Jane Austen writes here.
This whole chapter is Mrs. Norris talking about how she wants so badly to just do good. She would never think of it as a burden on herself. And so she just doesn't burden herself. She just
She
burdens
sure
other
doesn't.
people.
But it's also the way in which she fixates on her sister who's poor and what she quote needs to do to help after her sister begs
Yes.
is like really an interesting character beat for me
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't strike me as compassionate.
No, it's to scratch her own itch of, like, wanting to be a quote unquote good person.
Yeah, and there's something else about it that she is so much the charity case of her sister, Lady Bertram,
Yeah.
and finding herself in a position to have a charity case of her own seems to give her something in this chapter.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
When, like, also, like, yes, she finds herself in a better position than her sister, and that's
Mhm.
exciting for her, but then she actually isn't the one giving back.
No, she basically, like, volunteers Sir Thomas
Yes.
to do exactly, like, we'll get into it, but, like, she's like, "What would really be nice for us to do is not just help the boy find employment, but to also help one of the girls by bringing her to Mansfield Park and raising her,
And you're gonna do it.
and you're gonna do it." And there's a whole bit where Sir Thomas is like, "Wait, this was your idea. Are you not gonna have her as your
She's
companion
like,
in the
"Oh, I
parsonages?"
can't."
My husband has too much gout to have a little girl around.
Here's the thing, the fact that her thought of how to help her sister is to take a child off her hands is insane to me. I get it.
I think it's more of a historical point because wards were a thing back in the day. If you
Yes.
recall, this is exactly what happened with Jane Fairfax.
Yes. I get it. However, I think that, like, the lack of understanding, I mean, they mention it a few times, but, like, they've just lifted this girl out of her family. She's 10 years old.
We're going to have to dive really deep into this because just because it is a common practice in this time period, it
Yes,
doesn't mean that Jane Austen has nothing to say about the
totally.
practice itself. And I think that comes across really clearly in this chapter.
Yes, absolutely.
So we should go into the conversation they
Yes.
have.
So we'll continue. So they decide to take a child off of her hands, off of Fanny Price's hands. Sir Thomas is not easily convinced at first. He thinks it would be more cruel than kind to take her away from her own family. Plus, there's all the expenses of raising a child and, putting a girl into society. And he's thinking of his own children, specifically his own two boys and, quote, cousins in love. I wrote, "Are these motherfucking cousins going to marry?" Now, I hate to say it, and we'll get to it at the end, but I think that these cousins are going to marry. So we learn that Mrs. Norris likes to talk, and we get a whole paragraph or 2 pages from her saying she agrees it might be expensive. They can do everything they can for the kid, but really just by being in his family, not her family, his family, and being in this area, she has every chance of settling well. Plus, she says, "Don't worry about your sons." Quote, "Of all things upon earth, that is the least likely to happen. Brought up as they would be, always together like brothers and sisters, it is morally impossible." Famous last words.
Molly just held her face like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone.
Not only am I holding my face like I'm in Home Alone, I'm rooting for it.
You want the cousins to marry.
Unfortunately, Becca, I am obsessed with Edmund Bertram.
Okay,
But we'll get
okay.
into it.
Yeah, we will.
Okay. So, in fact, Mrs. Norris thinks that this is the best way to avoid either of the boys falling in love with her because they're going to get in there when she's a child. They're going to see her as their little sister rather than 7 years down the line when she's an adult meeting her for the first time and being like, "Oh my god, she's so poor. She has such a tragic backstory. She's so pretty."
Mhm.
Like, they would fall in love with her.
Yeah.
So, if they see her as their sister, less likely to do so. I am curious, do they have to worry about the other 8 children? Who knows? Sir Thomas says she's right, but they need to be careful because imagine she goes into society and she doesn't get an offer from an eligible bachelor. They're going to need to provide for her the provision of a gentlewoman. Like she's going to then probably need a dowry? Is that what he's worried about?
Yeah, I also think he's thinking of what if she can't find a match
In general.
and we have to continue to house her
Yeah,
forever.
forever. And then she'll be a spinster in our house.
Exactly. Like when you take on the care of a relation who's a woman, like the two options are she either marries or you take care of her for the rest of her life. It's fun being a woman in this time frame.
So fun.
Yes.
Mrs. Norris says, "You know what? I would rather deny myself life's pleasures than be ungenerous. So, to make sure there's absolutely no trouble to you, Sir Thomas, I will get the child to Mansfield Park myself. Nanny will go pick her up." Nanny being
Her maid.
her maid. And she can stay with her cousin and go by public coach, and it'll be so cheap. And I'll have to give up my own servant for 3 days.
Very big sacrifice.
Huge. I think that Sir Thomas, when he agrees, I think he gets a private coach for her because it says something about, like, a less economic but more dignified approach was taken.
Yeah.
Mrs. Norris is patting herself on the back for a good deed, while Sir Thomas is taking on all of the expense and labor of it. And I did wanna read this paragraph because I
Please
think
do.
it describes Mrs. Norris perfectly.
Oh, yes.
"The division of gratifying sensations ought not, in strict justice, to have been equal, for Sir Thomas was fully resolved to be the real and consistent patron of the selected child, and Mrs. Norris had not the least intention of being at any expense whatever in her maintenance. As far as walking, talking, and contriving reached, she was thoroughly benevolent, and nobody knew better how to dictate liberality to others. But her love of money was equal to her love of directing, and she knew quite as well how to save her own as to spend that of her friends. She is frugal. She married lower than she expected to.
Yeah, it was a disappointing match for her.
Yes. And so she was like, I'm not going to spend any of the money that comes in. Then she saved up. She didn't have any kids. She didn't have any reason to spend money. So she continues to save money. And now she's frugal, not because she needs to be, but out of habit. And I think she just likes to have money.
Mhm.
So her thing, I think, throughout this book is going to be not spending money when she should.
Absolutely. She's a penny pincher. Her whole, like, livelihood is based essentially on Sir Thomas, and she has kind of basically this idea that she's, like, sort of encapsulated within his realm of wealth and what he does with it, and so she kind of decides what he's gonna do for herself and then has no part in any of the actual implementation of what he has to do,
Yes.
and that is very much it's very extreme in the case of Fanny in
Yes.
this particular instance.
Yeah. And Thomas is surprised to learn that Mrs. Norris won't be taking any responsibility for the kid because, like you said already, it was her idea. And he's like, "You're not gonna at least let her visit the house?" She's like, "Oh no, my husband is too ill to have a child running around. He could no more bear the noise of a child than he could fly." Girl.
Oh my god. Yeah, he's too gouty to have a child around.
Yeah. So the Bertrams say, "Okay, well then we'd better take her. This way she'll have company her own age because they have 4 kids, and she'll have a teacher because they have a governess for
Mhm.
their girls and their boys, I guess. Boys? No, girls."
There's 2 girls, 2 boys. The boys go away to school. The girls
Right.
have governess who teaches them in the home.
Right. So there's a governess, so she'll have access to that.
Exactly. She will be educated. But I think one of the things we're kind of talking around in the scene that we haven't really talked about is they have an explicit, long conversation about the fact that they will be so kind to her and they're going to be so good and they're going to house her and they're going to feed her and they're going to educate her. We're going to bring her up into society. But the whole time, it's going to have to be really clear that she is not as high in society as her cousins. That
Yes.
we must continue to other her while she is in our home.
Yes. They explicitly say that a little bit later on, but
Yep.
it's definitely present the whole time.
Mhm.
Starting with Mrs. Norris suggesting that she live in the attic.
Yes.
It's giving Jane Eyre.
Yeah, she basically says, like, "It will be no trouble to you," but when Sir Thomas, like, has her here, he basically says something to the effect of, like, "It'll be really important that we make her understand that she's not one of our children,
Yes.
and that she's not in the same place in society as them as well," which I think is the basis for this entire story, essentially,
Yeah.
is that Fanny at age 10 is brought into a house that is far more luxurious than she's ever experienced, and almost immediately is told over and over again that she will never reach the heights of society of her cousins.
Right.
And that is by design and intentional, and it is seen as a kindness.
Yeah. Sir Thomas says that they can't be too hard on her. He of course says, like, if she has a bad disposition, we're gonna send her back. But we have to give grace for the fact that she's poor, so she'll have meanness of opinions, gross ignorance, vulgarity of manner, but we can fix those things. He's not worried about her rubbing off on his daughters, her filthy ignorance, because they're older, so if anything, they're gonna be able to teach her.
Yes.
Lady Bertram says that she hopes that she won't tease her pug, and I wanna make note that there is a pug in this story.
The pug is our first, like, dog Austen character, I would say.
Yeah, we haven't gotten a name for him yet, but my guess is it's like Sir Wobbles or something like that.
We'll call him Sir Wobbles in
Yeah.
this home until instructed otherwise.
Yes, perfect. So Sir
Yep.
Wobbles, she's just gotten her daughter Julia to stop bugging him. She's like, nobody can bother Sir Wobbles.
Yes, and we can glean from Lady Bertram is that the pug is Mr. Wobbles is her entire universe.
Oh yeah, it actually says that she cares more about Sir Wobbles than her
Yeah.
girls.
I do wanna read one more quote before we get off the point of, like, the poverty because it comes earlier.
Oh, okay, sure.
Whatever I can do, as you well know, and this is from Mrs. Norris, I am always ready enough to do the good for those I love. And though I could never feel for this little girl the 100th part of the regard I bear for your own dear children, nor consider her in any respect so much my own, I should hate myself if I were capable of neglecting her. I could never feel for this little girl the 100th part of regard I bear your own dear children. Why the fuck not?
Right.
I could never bear. Like, I could never have 100th of the regard for this girl that I have for your children.
They're pre-hating her.
They're pre-condescending to her is
Yes.
the thing. They both think of themselves in this scene as doing good.
Yeah.
And Lady Bertram, I guess, in that as well, although she's kind of a passive
She's super
voice.
passive. Yeah.
Super passive, and I think that's a consistent character trait here. But immediately it's we're going to do right by this girl and never show her affection that could make her think she's part of this family.
Right. We're just doing this because
Wouldn't it be good to do this for the poor?
yeah, wouldn't this make us feel good about ourselves?
Wouldn't we be so nice from our high position in English British society to go down to help someone who theoretically is a part of our lives
Mhm.
and make them feel better? It's the condescension of charity. It's the
Yeah.
patronizing nature of charity.
It's performative.
It is performative and it is not out of the goodness of their hearts here. It is the self-congratulatory nature of doing good. And I think already Jane Austen is telling us a lot about the Bertrams and Mrs. Norris through that passage. And I think it's a very important way that we have to think about the book the entire time.
Yeah.
Is how did these people take on Fanny Price in the first instance? And how did they operate raising her in their home?
Yeah.
And I think that tells us how this book is going to go from the very first start.
Yeah.
It's like, what do they think of this girl? How do they raise her? What is she told about her position in society from the jump?
Yeah, and I underlined this quote that Sir Thomas says next, which is, "As to the distinction proper to be made between the girls as they grow up, how to preserve in the minds of my daughters the consciousness of what they are without making them think too lowly of their cousin, and how, without depressing her spirits too far, to make her remember that she is not a Miss Bertram. I should wish to see them very good friends, and would of no account authorize in my girls the smallest degree of arrogance towards their relation, but they cannot be equals."
Exactly. So, like, the entire book is premised on this notion that our main character is going to be told from day one, you can dabble in this world, you can play in this world, you can like cosplay essentially in this world, but you'll never fully be part of it.
And they're not gonna do anything to make her feel like she's a part of it.
They're actively going to make sure she knows she's not.
Yeah, it's setting this up to be an evil stepsisters situation.
It's setting up two girls at a very young age to immediately define themselves as relationally better than another little girl.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Cinderella story.
Yeah.
And she's living in the attic.
And she's living in the attic.
So Hilary Duff will be playing
Fanny
Fanny
Price.
Price, which, by the way, in case it wasn't clear, Fanny Price Jr. is named after her mother. Very
Yes, she
Lorelai
is.
Gilmore.
Yes, and also true of Mariah Ward as well.
Oh, yeah, she has a
Yeah.
child named Mariah.
Yeah, so the 4 children of the Bertram family are Thomas Bertram, who's named after Sir Thomas, Edmund Bertram,
Sigh.
yeah, Mariah Bertram, who's named after her mother, and Julia Bertram.
Yes,
And then now we are adding Fanny Price to that mix. Mrs. Norris, no children. Just a
correct.
gouty, grumpy clergyman of a husband.
Yes. Mrs. Price, when they write to her to say, "Can we have a kid?" is surprised that they want one of her daughters because she has so many sons,
Mhm.
but she's happy to give one up, and she's like, she's gonna be good-humored, well-disposed. She is delicate, she is puny, but a change of air would do her good.
Yes, so we're learning already Fanny is a tiny little, like,
She's
slip
the
of a
runt.
girl. Well, it's interesting because she's the eldest daughter
Yeah.
in the Price family and therefore is kind of a leader in that family, but she is by nature slight, timid, shy, which is not our typical Jane Austen heroine.
No.
No.
No. And that is the end of that chapter.
Yes, that's chapter 1. So already we are deep into, like, a Dickensian edge to Jane Austen.
Yes. Which brings us to chapter 2.
Mhm,
Fanny Price is 10 years old when she arrives. Now, my thought was that we were 13 years from the present, quote
mhm,
unquote, because of the math that I explained earlier. But there is a question of how long after Mrs. Norris got married
mhm,
did Frances or Fanny Price get married. But in any event, she's 10. She's shy and awkward, but she's sweet.
mhm.
And my impression here is that Sir Thomas tries really hard to be nice, but he has a stern deportment, meaning manners or behavior, and therefore he's frightening to Fanny. He's kind of like he's got a grumpy, he doesn't know how to show affection.
To be honest, this is actually super relatable. Do you remember being really young and being a little scared of one of your uncles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like that is what we're dealing with here is that Sir Thomas comes in very boisterous, very outgoing, and, like, immediately terrifies her.
Interesting. I was getting not boisterous or outgoing because they kept calling him grave. So I was getting that he was like, "What lovely
Yes.
shirt."
Yeah, no, what I mean is he was trying too hard and, like, came across as inauthentic and, like,
Mhm.
men are scary.
Well, and it says later, this was kind of sad, and I marked it down later with his other girls, he doesn't actually know them as people because they're timid around him because he's so grave and stern.
Mhm.
So they don't get to show their real selves to him. They're, like, subdued around him.
Yes.
So he's giving, like, he cares, but he doesn't know how to show it.
No, he does not, and he's also not very involved in the inner lives of his children.
Yeah. So Mrs. Bertram automatically becomes Fanny's favorite because she smiles at her.
Mrs. Bertram is, like, vibing. She's very much a wine mom.
Yes.
Like, Lady Bertram is, like, sitting there, like, she's got, like, the glass of Sauvignon,
She's got the pug on her lap.
and she's, like, hanging. Like, she's having a good time, so, like, immediately, like, giving, like, took a Xanax and, like, had a Chardonnay at the same time, and so Fanny's like, "Okay, she's calm."
Yeah, she's like, "I like this one."
Yeah.
We get to meet the kids now. The 2 sons are 16 and 17,
Mhm.
and Fanny looks up to them in the way that you do to your, like, older cousins.
And she basically says they, like, seem to her like they're, like, full-grown men
Yeah,
at this
they're
point.
men.
Yeah, because she's, like, a little girl and they're, like, big guys,
Big manly men.
big manly men. So I relate to this insofar as, like, my parents are both the youngest sibling,
Mhm.
so I have a lot of older cousins, and, like, they always seemed so much older than me.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, all of my cousins are older than me. I was always the baby, and it says something later about the way that Tom interacts with her, but, like, he kind of jokes with her and teases her in that way that only an older cousin can to a younger
Yeah.
cousin, where it's like, they're kinda mean, but you're like, "Oh, this is funny."
I always find it super weird when, like, a much older teenager makes fun of a little girl. Like, it is always, like it's so weird if you're beefing with a child because it's like, "What are you doing? Why?"
Yeah, well, when I was a kid, my cousins always teased me, and it was very much in a way of, like, they're not beefing, but they need someone who's far enough away
Mhm.
removed to mess around with because That's not their direct sibling, like, they're not gonna really get in trouble. Anyway, I don't think that Tom was beefing with Fanny so much as just, like, joking around.
Yeah, you get the sense that Tom Bertram is, like, by far the least involved in Fanny Price's life
Yes,
for reasons we'll discuss.
sure.
But we haven't talked about our girlies,
The girlies.
Mariah and Julia.
Yes, they are less chill. It seems their dad, quote, addressed them with an injudicious particularity, injudicious meaning indiscreet. So my guess is that he, like, made too big a deal about this to them and was like, "You're different than her, but you have to act normal."
I also take this to mean that Sir Thomas, even if he doesn't know his children well, is immediately more affectionate with his 2
Oh, yeah.
girls than he is with Fanny, and I
Yeah.
think that is palpable through the whole story.
Oh, I see, like, he was more affectionate with them in front of her in a way that
Yes.
got to their heads.
And to Fanny's head too.
Yeah.
Like there's an obvious way in which he might not be mean to her,
Mhm.
but he loves his daughters.
Yeah.
And she is like a little girl who's hanging out at his house.
Yeah, and this goes to their heads and they become cocky,
Oh yeah.
especially when they see how little confidence Fanny has.
Yes, Fanny makes herself an easy foil for these 2 girls with a lot more in life than her, and immediately it translates as popular girls, girl mean versus the puny little girl, the shy girl, the outcast.
Yes, absolutely. All of the Bertrams are tall, with good education and confidence, and
They're
if
all hot.
they're all hot, and if you look at them, you would think that the girls were a lot older than Fanny, when in fact, Fanny's 10, Julia's 12, and Mariah's 13.
Mhm.
So they're a lot closer in age than they appear, but Fanny is tiny and shy.
Yes.
Poor Fanny is afraid of everyone. She's ashamed of herself.
Because you find out that the carriage ride up with Norris,
Mhm.
her Aunt Norris is like over and over again telling her, "By the way, you're the luckiest person that's ever lived.
Like, can you believe that we are taking you on?
Like, you should feel grateful every day, but by no means think you're part of the family fully."
Yeah.
Over and over again. And so now not only is Fanny immediately homesick, sad, lonely, and feeling horrible, but she's feeling guilty because she says she classifies it as a wicked thing she's
Yeah.
feeling.
She's like, "This is terrible. How could I be feeling so bad about something that's supposedly so good for me?"
Yeah. Also, immediately you see Austin wants you to feel for this little girl. Like the heartstrings are tugged.
Yeah, she can't stop crying. She opens her mouth and she cries. So she
Yeah.
just doesn't open her mouth.
Yeah, so, like, you see her she takes 2 bites of pie, and then she's too upset to eat, and she just goes upstairs to cry in her room.
Yeah. It says that everyone's trying to cheer her up by the condescensions of Mr. Thomas or the prognostications, meaning foretelling or prophesying of Mrs. Norris about how good a girl she's going to be because she's so lucky,
Mhm.
and the invitations from Lady Bertram to sit on the couch with the pug, which would always cheer me up.
I mean, I was gonna say that's probably the best remedy possible is just hanging out with the dog,
Yeah.
and Wobbles is a king, so
Mr. Wobbles is a king.
yeah.
However, none of that cheers her up. So she goes into her room to cry, and they talk about her behind her back.
Mhm.
Mrs. Norris says this isn't a very promising beginning,
Mhm.
but we have to remember that we just ripped her away from her family.
Yeah, so don't worry, she'll be grateful soon.
Yeah, tomorrow, much better. Nobody really knows how to help her. They don't mean to be unkind, but they also don't go out of their way to make her comfortable.
And that's kinda, like, exactly the framing that we've talked about here is, like, they knew immediately, they were like, "We can't love her too much. We can't be too kind to her, otherwise she'll think she belongs."
Exactly. And she
Yeah,
does not belong.
and she sure doesn't belong.
The next day, the girls are supposed to be getting to know each other, but when they learn that she only has 2 sashes and she doesn't speak any French, they just give her their least favorite toys and go play by themselves.
Do you remember not knowing something in front of other girls when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Horrible.
Terrible.
Worst feeling.
They're like, "Oh my god, you haven't seen Barbie on ice," or
Oh my god.
whatever.
Yeah, I remember being in 1st grade and my mom used to use the phrase baba to like refer to a bottle.
Mhm.
And my sister was drinking out of a bottle at the time. And I used it in front of a bunch of other girls and they were like, "What are you talking about? Are you a baby? That's not a word." And I felt like the dumbest person in the universe, and I was like, "This is it. This is the end of my life." Now, obviously, I'm like, "Okay." Like, but, like, when you're young, when you're a kid and you don't know things in front of other little girls and they're mean to you about it, it is, like, the worst feeling in the world, and I can't imagine the pain of being, like, 10 years old and everything you've been, like, the smart one. You've been, like, the leading, like, person, and it even says, like, in her she's so important at home to all of her siblings because she's the oldest and she leads them, but here amongst these new girls, like, they know so much more than her, they're so much more worldly than her, so she just feels like everything about her life up until that point has been pure garbage.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's really
Fanny.
devastating, and again, she's 10.
Yes.
She doesn't know French, duh. But yeah,
No,
it's
I mean, it's like Mariah and Julia have been in class for years together, learning to be the most accomplished young ladies possible. And Fanny is not in that position. She's just going to start her education at age 10. And the two of them they're the type of rich, ignorant girls that don't understand that they're rich
yes.
necessarily
Oh,
until they relationally meet someone who is so much worse off than them, which is Fanny. And, they think, "Oh, if she doesn't have all these things that I have and I've worked so hard for, then maybe I'm better."
yeah, and this is something that I wanted to get into a little bit later, but we can start to get into it now, which is the commentary that Jane Austen is making
Mhm.
about the relationality of wealth and,
Yes.
like, the fact that these girls look down on Fanny so much because she doesn't know things or because she hasn't learned certain things that she'd never had the opportunity to learn because she's poor. It's not that she's stupid, which is what they keep saying. It's that she didn't have the same opportunities that they had. But
Mhm.
nobody's telling these girls that. They're like, well, it's not her fault. She's a slow learner. It's like, no, she didn't get a governess. She hasn't had the chance like they've been afforded the opportunity to.
Yeah,
So that is super interesting that that's being brought up.
absolutely, and the other thing, like, it's kind of baked into this part of the story, but Mariah and Julia are not told. Like, they don't understand the differences in class between them and Fanny sort of inherently. They are forced to understand that there's a gap between what Fanny knows and what they know, and then we'll get into it. Norris explains to them why they're better than her.
Yes.
It's almost like it shows class as a construct in this society, and, I mean, there's so much to unpack in these first 2 chapters about what Jane Austen is saying about class from the get-go, from the 3 sisters who forged their own paths in very different classes,
Mhm.
and then when you get to this upper echelon, I mean, we'll talk about it, but the Bertrams generally already are, like, indicting
Right.
the upper class and showing them to feel themselves inherently better than those beneath them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to read this next part because I don't understand how these people can think that they don't mean to be cruel. It says, her elder cousins mortified her by reflections on her size and abashed her by noticing her shyness. Miss Lee, that's the governess, wondered at her ignorance, and the maidservants sneered at her clothes. And when to these sorrows was added the idea of the brothers and sisters among whom she had always been important as
Mm.
playfellow, instructress, and nurse, the despondence that sunk her little heart was severe.
I mean, this is not Sir Thomas and Mrs. Norris who agreed to not be unkind to her. These are this I mean, to me,
It's
it's just
everybody else.
yeah, it shows how, like, immediately, like, when someone's different than you, they immediately latch on to class, and you can see class being constructed in real time around Fanny.
Yeah.
And the way in which Mariah, Julia, and Fanny each come into their own of understanding their place in society through their relationships with each other at a very young age.
Yeah.
This is a Jane Austen novel, damn.
Yeah. Fanny gets better at hiding her emotions. She just spends a lot of time crying in her room,
Mhm.
but they don't necessarily know that. It says, quote, "The little girl who was spoken of in the drawing room when she left it at night as seeming so desirably sensible of her peculiar good fortune, ended every day's sorrows by sobbing herself to sleep." Devastating.
Poor little Fanny.
But one morning, Edmund finds her on the stairs.
Yes, he does.
And she's crying, and he's, like, trying to figure out what's wrong, and Edmund is the one who is
He's the second son.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah. he's, like, trying to figure out what's wrong with her, and finally she starts sobbing when he asks her about home, so he figures that she's homesick. And he's like, "Listen, everyone here loves you and wants you to be happy and comfortable," which is simply not true, but I mean, I guess they do want her to be comfortable.
Of course, yeah, they do want her to be comfortable.
They just
Um,
don't love her.
no, no, they do not, and also, it's the first time anybody's seeing, "Oh, of course you have the right to be homesick. You're a little girl who's been taken from your mother."
Yeah.
And that's what Edmund brings to this interaction is immediately like, "Oh, no, that makes sense." And it's not even that he's, fixing everything for her in an instant. It's that he's the first person in Mansfield Park to treat Fanny with kindness and humanity.
With, like, understanding for the feelings that she's having instead of being like, "Well, you should be grateful."
Yeah, no, instead of, "Wow, why are you so behind on your French? Why aren't you grateful that you are no longer in Portsmouth?" It's, "Oh, you miss your mom. Oh, this is a lot and it's very scary, but don't worry, like, you're gonna get the hang of it."
Yeah, and he says, "Let's go for a walk and you can tell me about your brothers and sisters,"
Yes.
which is the sweetest thing that he could have done. So she reveals that her best friend in the world is her older brother, William. So he's
Mhm.
the oldest.
Yes.
And he was really upset when she left. And Edmund's like, "Well, surely he'll write to you." And Fanny says, "I don't know. He asked me to write to him first." And Edmund's like, "Well, will you?" And she says, "I don't know. I don't have any paper." Girl! Actually, in my notes, I wrote baby girl. I
I
felt
know.
very Pedro Pascal in The Last of Us saying just like baby
"I got you,
girl.
baby girl."
Yeah, he's got her.
Yeah, and I mean, it just tells you everything you need to know that she's been there for a while, and she has been so scared to ask for anything, so told that you must feel like you are grateful to be here and not fuck this up for the rest of us, essentially. She didn't even think to ask for a pen and paper to
Yeah.
write to her brother.
Well, she's been walking around the house feeling like she's gonna break anything she touches because everything is too good for her to be around.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Edmund is like, "If you wanna write to him, we'll go get you paper right now." Like, there's some in the drawing room or in the breakfast room, and he even says, like, "We'll have the room to ourselves," because he knows how shy she is and
Yeah.
how, like, embarrassed she is about all of
He's
this.
starting to gather, like, she is, like, a very timid little girl
Mhm.
who needs to be sort of encouraged into things or she will do nothing,
Yeah.
and not only does he help her write a letter to her brother, he also sends William a letter himself.
Yes, which is so sweet. And she's like, "How will it go to post?" And he says, "It'll go with the other letters. Don't worry about it. Uncle will frank it so it won't cost William anything." I learned about this at the Morgan exhibit.
Hell yeah.
When you sent letters to people, they had to pay the post when they received the letters most of the time. And that's why letters would be written like packed as much information in one letter as possible because the more you send back and forth, the more it costs for each person. So him franking it, franking means like to fund it so that it arrives with
It arrives paid for.
paid for. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it like says like you don't have to pay this.
it's wild. For our Gen Z listeners, that's also how text messages used to work.
Oh yeah.
You
TBT.
needed to pay to receive text messages.
Yeah. So the things that change. Anyway, Edmund sits down with her and rules her lines for her. Like he makes the lines on the paper
Yes, he does.
because this girl is, I
10.
cannot stress this enough, she's 10. And he helps her with orthography, which is spelling.
Mhm.
And he like helps her write the letter. But her favorite thing is that he writes his own letter to the brother.
Yes,
And
he
he
does.
puts half a guinea in
Yep.
because he's the best. I will say the cousins, they're cousins.
Yep.
And I don't and also she's 10.
Yes,
So
and he's 16.
and he's 16. So I'm, like, perfectly happy if they're just BFFs. But I do see a world in which, like, we fast forward and they fall in love.
Well, I will neither confirm nor deny anything, but immediately, I think what's apparent here is that this ounce of kindness that she's getting, this like scrap of being treated like a human being, becomes vital to her, and
Yes.
also becomes important to Edmund as well,
Yes.
because he learns that she's actually more than just his little sad cousin. He ends up enjoying her company.
Yeah, he finds her an interesting object.
Hmm.
He thinks that she has an affectionate heart and a strong desire of doing right. He also sees how aware she is of her situation and decides that he has to do better than everyone else has. He has to offer her kindness and he gives her advice on playing with his sisters. and, generally, like, wants to help her come out of her shell.
Yeah, he basically acts as a translator for Mansfield Park as a place for her.
Yeah.
And with his help,
She becomes less afraid.
yeah, she's still so I think we have to acknowledge the fact that Fanny never like in these chapters is able to like she is still the lesser girl. She is
Yes.
the one who gets the 100th of the regard.
Yes.
But she becomes, an acceptable presence in the
It
home.
it says occasionally an acceptable
Occasionally,
presence
an acceptable
when they
presence.
need a third person for their games.
Well, with Mariah and Julia, I mean more generally, she is
Sure.
acceptable to her family.
Yes, it's funny, there's a line where Lady Bertram is like, "Well, she's very good at fetching things for me." Like, she doesn't seem to have any problem with her because she does stuff for her, which I will say again feels very a Cinderella story. Even if
Yep.
they're not, like, intentionally cruel, it's giving, like, "Oh, the girl who lives in the attic and gets stuff for me. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like her."
I mean, it's we'll talk about it, but Lady Bertram, like, wine mom extraordinaire, as we've said, is, like, basically sitting on the couch and is like, "Oh, Fanny, can you fetch me my book? Oh, Fanny, can you fetch me my cross stitching?" And Fanny's very obliging.
Yes.
And so it's not like she's asked to, like, clean and cook or anything. It's more that she is, like, a very dutiful and obedient little
Mhm.
girl, where Julia and Mariah, as you can see, have attitude.
Yes. Well, and it's been so, like, impressed upon her how grateful she has to be here, so she's gonna try to earn her keep by being obliging.
You know the first time you went to your partner's house and you did all the dishes?
I would say I am not that person, but I understand the impulse.
When I'm a guest somewhere, I'm such a better, like, cleaner and more
Oh,
polite,
totally.
and when I'm trying to impress people, like, 'cause I want them to like me, I'm so much better at taking care of the
Oh,
space.
absolutely, like and also, like, if I go to, like, an Airbnb with a group of friends, I'm more likely to clean up than I am in my own
Yeah.
home.
So it starts with Fanny being kind of a nuisance, and now she's graduated sort of to the status of guest.
Yes, well, and they describe it as her having a tractable disposition, which I looked up, and it means easy to control.
Yes, she's very pliant.
Yes. The girls, however, still think she's stupid, and they're constantly marveling about how little she knows. And this is the part that we wanted to chat about, the class commentary going so hard and Mrs. Norris explaining why they're better than her. Should I just read it?
Yeah, go for it.
So they're talking about how, "Oh my god, she's so dumb. She doesn't know what the Isle of Wight is, blah 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 blah." Very true indeed, my dears. But you are blessed with wonderful memories, and your poor cousin has probably none at all. There is a vast deal of difference in memories, as well as in everything else, and therefore you must make allowance for your cousin and the pity of her deficiency. And remember that, if you are ever so forward and clever yourselves, you should always be modest, for much as you know already, there is a great deal more for you to learn. And then one of them goes, "Yes, I know there is till I am 17." But did you know she doesn't like music or drawing? And Mrs. Norris continues, "To be sure, my dear, that is very stupid indeed, and shows a great want of genius and emulation. Emulation meaning effort.
Mhm.
But, all things considered, I do not know whether it is not as well that it should be so. For though you know, owing to me, your papa and mamma are so good as to bring her up with you, it is not at all necessary that she should be as accomplished as you are. On the contrary, it is much more desirable that there should be a difference."
So in real time, creating class
Yes.
between the 2,
Yes.
creating this schism between Julia and Mariah, who already we see were naturally taking to feeling superior to Fanny, but defining it in the constraints of, yes, you should be better than her.
Yes. It's wild because, again, she's calling her a slow learner.
Mhm.
She's saying she's not putting in the effort
Mhm.
when she just hasn't had the access to the education that these girls have had.
Funny how we don't, think that way anymore, do we? In a
No.
society.
Yeah. We've come so far.
Oh god, yeah, it's still this is why Jane Austen remains so relevant today is that like I said, these 2 opening chapters, I wanted to pair them together even though they don't really get into the meat and potatoes of what, like, ultimately the story becomes,
Mhm.
because obviously it takes place there's a time jump.
Yes.
But for me, it is the frame of the story that creates the setting that we understand the whole story to operate within.
Yeah. And Mrs. Norris is I think the reason she says this now and, like, verbally creates this schism between them is because she knows that's what, Sir Thomas
Yes.
wants.
Mrs. Norris is, I think we've learned, a pretty brutal character,
Mhm.
but she is enacting what Sir Thomas told her in the first chapter he wanted to exist between him and his daughters
Yeah.
and Fanny Price.
Yeah. They cannot be the same because that would be social climbing because they think of her as inherently lesser than them because she's poor.
Because they think of her as inherently lesser than them because she is poor. I don't think they would describe it that way,
Right.
but there is a dehumanization of a genuinely poor character happening at play. And we've talked about this when I've said, like, we haven't really met poor characters in Jane Austen novels
Yeah.
before. Fanny Price is actually poor. Like, the reason they take her on is because her mother financially cannot support feeding them all
Right.
enough food. That is a different level of poverty than we have seen. It is not the Dashwoods moving into Barton Cottage. It is not Harriet Smith living with a scandalous background. It is not Captain Wentworth without a lot of money to his name, but desperate to make his way in the world. It is a stuck poverty. It is a staunch poverty and one that really drains empathy
Mhm.
from the upper classes around her.
And it is so fitting that we read this right after Persuasion because this is what would have happened if Wentworth had married Anne when he first proposed and if he had not then worked his way up.
Yeah, so Wentworth was ambitious when we met him, and he had the opportunity to perhaps ascend class
Mhm.
because there was a war and because he was arrogant and felt like he was going to make something of himself, which is something Anne really liked in him. But this is why so many people defend Lady Russell, is because if he had injured himself and didn't have the capacity to make a living, then sure, he's going to be, Mr. Price.
Yeah. But what Anne knew about him that Fanny didn't necessarily know about Mr. Price is that he was going to try hard at whatever he did. And if he had gotten injured, that ambition and that desire to do well would have stayed, I think. And I think that Wentworth is more than just arrogant and ambitious. I think that he really tries.
Well, it would have taken a leap of faith.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and that's the thing, is that Fanny took the leap of faith and it didn't work out.
Exactly.
Anne didn't take the leap of faith, and it looks in hindsight like she should have, but it is not unreasonable to be prudent on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I will say, like, I think Wentworth had more possibility for upward mobility than Mr. Price does.
Hmm.
But that being said, it was still a risk because he was an army man. And also, like, God forbid he passed away in war. Like, his wife would have,
Had
had
nothing.
some, but not much, especially if he didn't make a lot of money before he died.
Yeah.
So these are the things that kind of form the background of the story, and the consequence of a poor marriage here is the utter dehumanization and actual squalor living that the Prices experience.
Yeah. It says here that the daughters have a lot of knowledge, but they lack the basic knowledge of generosity and humility and self awareness.
Mhm.
And Sir Thomas isn't aware of what they lack because he doesn't get to know them well enough.
Mhm.
Because, like I said before, they don't really show their spirits around him. And simultaneously, Lady Bertram doesn't pay attention to her daughter's education. She has no time for that with,
Wobbles.
wobbles and cross stitching and drinking Sauvignon Blanc. Um,
Xanax. Don't forget about the
and the
Xanax.
Xanax. But also, she's like, well, even if I had time for that, it wouldn't really matter because they have a governess. This, and I'm sorry for our listeners that don't watch Gilmore Girls because I will always find a Gilmore Girls reference, but these are Paris Geller's parents.
You mean high class people who don't raise their own kids?
Yeah,
Yeah. Funny how things don't change.
things
Not
don't change.
There can be good parents who are very wealthy,
Mhm.
but it is a stereotype of, like, high class people that they hire out the care of their children.
Mhm.
And that is what we see happening with the Bertrams at the expense of a lot of the humanity of the Bertrams. It actually is like Jane Austen kind of saying, like, what do these people lack because of their wealth?
Yeah,
And what it is,
love.
like, affection between this family, care for each other.
But they all think they're happy.
They all think they're happy. Yeah.
It's actually Pretty sad.
Already Jane Austen's like, "Fuck these people."
Yeah, but I do feel for the kids because they think that they're happy. They think that this is the best life.
And they think they're, invincible,
They think they're way better than Fanny.
Yeah.
Fanny gets used to living there and she's not unhappy. She grows up not unhappily. She accepts the treatment that she gets because she doesn't think she deserves any better,
Yes.
which is devastating.
Very sad and
Yeah.
a very difficult way to go through puberty.
Yeah, but
Quite
she
honestly.
thinks and she thinks that she's happy because she thinks this is what she deserves because she's poor.
She's basically said, "These are the crumbs that are much better than anything else I could have gotten."
Yeah, and that is a direct result of them constantly telling her that they are so good for taking her on.
Yes.
Lady Bertram gives up her house in town due to ill health and indolence, i.e., laziness. She just likes to sit around, as we've learned. So
Mhm.
she stays in the country full time while Sir Thomas occasionally goes to town for his duty in Parliament with, quote, whatever increase or decrease of comfort might arise from her absence, i.e., they are sometimes happier apart.
Yep.
And so he kind of witnesses the growing up of his girls in spurts. And he finds that they have grown tall and womanly. Tom grows careless and extravagant, but Edmund is just a good egg. He's set up to be a cleargyman.
And once again, Jane Austen is fascinated by the second son. Kind of
Yeah.
an interesting thing we'll get into, but once again, like our clearly one of our main characters is the second son of this family.
Yeah. And I wrote, if he betrays me, I'm burning this book.
Mhm.
If they kill him, I will be very upset. But if he turns out to not be a perfect angel baby, I will also be upset.
Mhm.
I don't need him to marry Fanny because, again, they are cousins and they're growing up as siblings and best friends. But I could see a world in which I root for that.
Mhm.
But if he turns out to be anything other than perfect, I'm mad. Sir Thomas continues to help Mrs. Price's other children, sending money, helping with her son's education. Fanny has seen William once in the last 13 years, or in the last however many years it's
Mhm.
been. Nobody else seems to want to see her, she thinks, which is sad. But William came to visit before going off to sea.
Mhm.
William's dead. There's no way that man's alive.
I'll neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah. When he leaves after visiting, she's really sad, but it's the holidays, so Edmund is home to comfort her and tell her all the amazing things William's about to go off and do. Again, dead, definitely dead. And even though Edmund went off to school, he stays the kindest, most wonderful brother towards her and tries to continue to bring her out of her shell over the years. He knows her better than anyone in the house. He recommends her books for fun. So, like, she learns French from Mrs. Lee and she learns fun books from Edmund. And then he, like, talks to her about them, which is unheard of. He encourages her taste. He corrects her judgment, which I'm like, man, I don't know about that. And she loves him more than anybody else in the world except for William. Her heart is divided between the two.
Yes, it is.
And that is the end of that chapter.
And that's where we leave our girl Fanny as she's growing up in Mansfield Park.
Yes.
And that brings us to our listener study questions. So, once again, listeners, now that we're back in Booktown, a reminder that if you join our Patreon at the $15 tier, you can submit questions before our episodes. Molly submits a Google Doc and you pop your questions in there, and then we will read them and discuss them on air. So, first question was submitted twice by Caitlin and Linnea, which is we have our first non gentlewoman Austen heroine. How does she compare to our other heroines? And how do you think this will affect her character arc moving forward?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the fact that she is actually poor. And I think that in terms of her in relation to the other heroines that we've had a lot of people who are like quote unquote poor, like the Bennets. We know that they're not actually poor, but they have money struggles.
They are landed gentry
Yeah.
who have not taken good care of their finances.
And there's a lot of that going on. Actually, I think there's been something like that in every Austen book so far. The slight exception of Sense and Sensibility, because that was out of their control.
Yes. There's always a money trouble of sorts. I mean, Emma is our most financially secure heroine by
Oh,
far.
yeah, I forgot about
Um,
Emma. There's not really money troubles there.
no, and that's kind of like why Emma is the way she is.
Yeah.
Jane Austen kind of makes the case that one needs some sort of financial friction in your life to have any troubles at all. And I mean, Emma's kind of the or not to have any troubles at all, but to have any self awareness and like learn about the world at all.
Mhm.
Where Emma has to be humbled up to her fucking teeth
Yeah.
throughout the book because she knows nothing because she's never had to work for anything in her life.
Right, kind
Um,
of like Julia and Mariah in this.
exactly.
I think it'll affect her character arc in that, and this brings me to, well, we've talked about it at length now, and so I'm not sure that my prediction from the beginning of the book stands, but the 2 girls on the cover, I was wondering if maybe Fanny might rise too far above her station in terms of, like, she might become a mean girl without meaning to, kind of like Mean Girls, where it's like, she doesn't actually belong here, but she thinks she does. So I thought maybe that was a possibility, like, where she, like, pretends or cosplays too hard as a rich
Mhm.
girl, and then it comes back to bite her in the ass when it matters, and it's like, "Oh, I don't have a dowry. Like, I don't
Mhm.
have anything to provide to give to you,
Yeah.
man." And or I think that I mean, I do think that if it's just her continually being beaten down upon by her like, cousins, that might get boring. So I think that there has to be some kind of friction between
Wrench thrown
them.
in the system.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what exactly it'll be.
Yeah, without spoiling anything, the things I'm gonna say is just sort of form as we go forward. One, Fanny's different because Fanny's an outsider
Mhm.
compared to our other heroines who are actively engaged in the landed gentry classes, and she is not.
Yeah.
She is coming in from a different life and observing somewhat from the outside, and I do think that forms the story and the character pretty heavily. The other thing I would note as something to chew on is that much of what she knows about this world is formed by only one person, and that is Edmund Bertram. And so I think her operation through the book and her understanding of the world is derived more directly from him than our other heroines who are a bit more self-assured.
Yeah.
So that would be with my non-spoilerly way of talking about why Fanny's different.
Yeah. No, I like that.
So next question is from Avi, who asks, Mansfield Park begins with the marriage of three Ward sisters. One, Lady Bertram, marries for money but not love. One, Frances Price, marries for love but does so to someone without any money. And the last, Mrs. Norris, marries for neither love nor money. How do you think these marriages will foreshadow the upcoming story?
Well, we had 3 sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have 2 sisters and a cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be interesting to see how their families' marriages, like the generation before them, inform what these 3 semi-sisters now do with their life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be interesting if we have one of each again, and if Fanny is the one who marries the richest for love and money. We didn't get anyone with love and money. So I think maybe that's what it's foreshadowing is we've had one of everything except love and money.
I will neither confirm nor deny. I will also say I'm going to skip down to one of my questions, which
Yeah, go
is
for it.
related and actually is similar to the question coming up from Janae. So consider this one to be from Avi, Janae, and myself, because it's about the three Ward sisters and their marriages. Each one is now in a different class. And
Mhm.
I think that's very important. We have upper class, middle class, lowest class of the three.
Yeah.
And I wanted to discuss what Jane Austen is saying about each and which each sister represents.
Yeah. So, let's start with Lady Bertram.
Mhm.
Money, but not love. We talked about this last week when we talked about Becoming Jane. Love being the dangerous choice that won't bring you the money or the safety. So, Lady Bertram made the safe money choice. Like, that could not possibly include love. Then we've got Mrs. Norris, who just married because she had to, seemingly for neither love nor money, and got a safe, middling,
She made a sensible
a
match.
sensible match. Whereas the person who went for love, as keeps happening, ended up destitute.
Well, she's our first person who goes for love and ends up destitute.
Yeah, I guess when I say as keeps happening, I'm thinking just to last week
Yep,
when the love choice would have landed them
in
in
Squalor.
squalor. Yeah.
And also that's the persuasion fear.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there are other characters. Lydia, you could say, kind of married for love, although it was more for lust.
Lydia
Um,
married for lust, and I don't know how long that one's gonna last.
no, no. But the other thing I wanna sort of, like, focus on is the characters themselves. So I think it's really important that they all start from the same place,
Right.
and they all end up in very, very, very different places
Yeah.
in their lives.
And Lady Bertram, as the upper class, is the one who's the least involved in her children's lives and her family's lives, and she's just kinda like,
Well, I think you see Lady Bertram wins the lottery.
mhm.
She has an incredibly advantageous match for her. She becomes a lady and she becomes passive. Like life is happening around her.
Yeah, she
Um,
doesn't have to put in any more work.
she's basically done. And like you see like this like aimless lack of meaning in Lady Bertram's life where she's just pliant to whatever's going on around her. Then you have Mrs. Norris, the middle class person who got, not the best match, but not the worst. And she, made a sensible enough match that he got a living
Mhm.
and she was never starved. And so she was able to sort of pull together a life for herself. But the resentment that comes with it, the way she didn't have her own children and she kind of co ops her sister's children. She co ops her sister's place at the top of Mansfield Park. And she's the one who is most obsessed with making sure Fanny knows her place.
Yeah, it's really interesting the way it talks about Lady Bertram. In all important decisions, she's guided by Thomas, and in all other decisions, she's guided by
Mrs.
Mrs. Norris.
Norris.
So Mrs. Norris is really running the place.
She is
And
with Sir Thomas.
yeah, it's the 2 of them, and Lady Bertram couldn't give a fuck.
So she's essentially cosplaying in a higher class because her sister has it.
Exactly.
And she gets the opportunity to do that because her sister's kind of like, I did my part. I had my children. I'm super rich. I lie back and like, I have no more purpose.
Yeah.
Mrs. Norris's purpose is essentially to continue to strive towards associating herself as closely as possible with the Bertrams.
Yeah.
And here, through Fanny, she has someone to feel better than.
Yeah.
And
Which she loves.
yes, she does love. And then Fanny, Francis Price Sr.,
Fanny Price the first.
Fanny Price the first, did the thing that every landed gentryman worries will happen to their daughter in this book. She marries for love and no money, and she just churns out kids like there's no tomorrow.
Mhm.
And now she can't feed them.
Yeah.
And they live in squalor by the docks. And like that is so far from the manor house that her sister Lady Bertram has, and the only difference between the two of them is who they married.
It's tough.
It's extremely, I think, important to understand the choice of who you marry is that important in the life of a woman in this time.
Yeah.
The economics of dating in Jane Austen coming to fruition. Graham, hella sound effect here.
I wonder also, we don't ever hear about the Ward sisters' parents, and I know that there was an irrevocable drift between the sisters, and they essentially disown Fanny for 11 years and don't ever talk to her. But were their parents still alive?
It's not really discussed, but you hear from the first chapter that their uncle was the one who put a dowry in, so you don't get the sense that they had the capacity to really provide for these girls.
Yeah. So I wonder if they're, I mean, either that or they're dead.
Yep.
But they came from not a lot.
They didn't come from much. They came from enough that it's not like it wasn't scandalous for Sir Thomas to marry Lady Bertram.
But it was exciting for everyone in their town.
It was a massive accomplishment because she married above her station.
Yeah.
She very much did. All right, so now we're going to skip to our second question from Janae. First impressions of the Bertrams.
Kind of obsessed. Low key, like, I hate them, but also
Yeah.
they are very different. Starting with Lady Bertram, she's an icon. I hate her, I love her. I don't know. I'm just Mr. Wobbles is really holding this
King.
family together.
Yeah, honestly, my favorite Bertram.
Yeah.
Um,
Wobbles Bertram,
King.
King. So, Lady Bertram, we've already talked about. She's uninvolved. Sir Thomas, I think of him as like he cares and he has love in his heart, but he has no idea how to show it.
Mhm.
And like, I don't think he's a bad person, but I think that he's absolutely a product of the status that he's been living in. His whole thing with like, they have to know that they're better than this girl and she has to know she's not a Miss Bertram. That's out of, I think, just complete compliance with
Mhm.
the time and the level of society that he holds. Because at the same time, he's like, but I would never encourage my girls to be mean to her. I would never be mean to her myself. He is, but
Yeah. From my perspective, it's kind of, and I don't wanna, like, form your thoughts on the book
mhm,
too hard, but it's like a very, gentle bigotry. Like a
it is.
nice bigotry.
Yeah, no, he's an absolute bigot.
Yeah.
I don't think that he intends to be, but I guess a lot of people don't.
Yeah, well,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't like him, but I think that he's an interesting character.
Yes, I agree with
And that's how I feel about both of them. The kids are a different story. I don't like Mariah and Julia. I think that they are gonna be the evil stepsisters of Cinderella.
mhm,
Tom, I don't know enough about to make an opinion. Edmund, my dream boy.
king.
What
Yeah.
what a hunk. I love him.
Okay, I'm not gonna disclose many of my thoughts on the Bertrams at this point.
Okay.
I will just say that they paint a picture. The interesting thing is I agree they are portrayed rather differently
Mhm.
than other Austen characters, but I don't know if I think that they're that different than other Austen characters in ways we'll unpack through the story.
Mm.
But I think that it's somewhat about the framing.
Yeah. Well, I think they're the most similar to probably in terms of, like, how much I feel like I'm supposed to hate them, Elizabeth Elliot level I
Yeah,
is how I feel about them.
they certainly are not painted sympathetically from the jump. But my point being that like their sins essentially at this point are not that different than the behaviors we have seen from Jane Austen characters in another context. It's just we're getting it from a different perspective now.
Yeah. No, you're so right. I wanna clarify, I do not love the Bertrams. I think that they are very interesting
No, no,
characters.
they are so much fun to read.
Yeah.
And
When I say I love them, I mean I love reading
well,
them.
we do love Wobbles.
Well, we can't say anything bad about Wobbles. He didn't
Never.
choose this life.
Love and honestly, like every dog does deserve to be spoiled that much. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Next question is from Melissa. What are your predictions for how all the characters will grow up to be? And what do you think of their dynamics and what are your expectations for them?
There are a couple different ways that this could go. I do think that the girls are gonna grow up very evil stepsistery. I think that they're gonna be like the mean girls. I think they're gonna continue to treat Fanny like their little cousin long beyond the point where she becomes hot, which we all know she's gonna become hot. She's got to. She can't be tiny and puny forever. I think she's gonna be cute and little. Anyway, I think that in terms of how Fanny's gonna grow up, that's where it could go one of 2 ways, which I've already talked about a little bit, but, like, she could either lean into the life that she's living and think too highly of herself, or she can continue to think that she doesn't deserve to be here. And I think it's probably gonna be that she doesn't think she deserves to be here, and, like, at some point, she's gonna have to enter society
Mm,
and will be shocked if anyone shows her attention. I do think that maybe her friendship with her cousin might grow beyond that. Who knows? That's what I think.
okay. Next question is from Katie Waz. I'm curious for your thoughts on how Mrs. Norris seems to establish power and influence and how she's able to sway a rich, powerful man so quickly.
How does she, honestly?
Girl has fucking hustle is like, listen, Norris already not the nicest character,
No.
but you gotta respect the hustle just a smidge.
Yeah, she knows how to play people like a harp.
Mhm.
Like, particularly Sir Thomas, she's been working on this for 11 years.
Yep.
She's been weaseling her way in. She's been ignoring her own husband. She's just been getting to know exactly how to, like, scratch
Mhm.
his itch of, like, he needs to know that he's better than everyone, and there's a moment where she shows that she, defers to him and that he's so respectable when she's like, "Just by being a part of your family and being seen with you in this
Mhm.
town, this girl's gonna do well. You don't have to spend any extra money on her."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, yeah, like, I am the best."
Yeah, I mean, she flatters him, she plays on his class guilt. She also, like, essentially mothers his children
Well, yeah, there's that too.
in, like, a way that, like, his wife doesn't. It's almost like she's cosplaying like she had the marriage that her sister has
Mhm.
as much as she can, and she kind of ignores her gouty ass husband.
Yeah, they should just run off together, honestly.
You're shipping?
No, but, like, I wouldn't be mad if it happened.
I will neither confirm nor deny. Actually, I'm gonna deny that
Alright,
they're
yeah, yeah.
not running off
No,
together.
I know they're not, I know they're not. But, like,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be quite the twist?
Oh my god, that would be I mean, listen, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question, our last patron study question is from Liz. Mansfield Park is often considered a more distinctive novel for Jane Austen. Why do you think the writing is so different from P&P, S&S, Emma, and Persuasion? What influenced her, or was there someone who might have been an editor in this work who did not edit the others?
Interesting. I mean, just based on these first 2 chapters, it does start differently than the others. I mean,
Mhm.
we always get a little bit of backstory, but we never have gone 30 years back and then 24 years back and then 15 years back. Like, it's always like, "Oh, here's who all these characters are."
Yeah, this story really is spanning a decades where other stories have spanned at most like a year.
Yeah. I don't know what influenced her. I think what year did this come out? 1814. So this was published between Pride and Prejudice and Emma.
Yes.
Interesting. I don't think I know enough about her life to know what was influencing her at this time.
I think she's challenging herself a little bit with this book,
Mhm.
in a way that I don't Mansfield Park, you've already read these first 2 chapters. You can see the tone is so different than
Mhm.
her other novels, and she really was, like, going for something that we'll kind of dive into as the story goes on,
Yeah.
and there are hints of that through the novel. We've already hit on some of them, but I didn't raise them with you because I think with they're better placed later in the discussion for us, but they're already hinted at.
Mhm.
And we kind of skated over
Mm.
them, which is fun and spicy. But she wrote to somebody, I forgot who, about what this novel was and how it was a different tack for her. But Fanny is palpably different than her other heroines. The tone is a little bit less fun and poppy than her other books. It's a little bit more I don't want to say sour, but it's darker. It's almost Dickensian. And I think she's challenging herself to push a little harder on society in this book
Yeah.
than she is in her other books. I think in her other books she's very focused on the experience of a sharp-minded young woman
Mhm.
in the landed gentry class.
Mhm.
And in this book, she is focused more on what it means that there is this class at all.
I mean, she is shitting on the Bertrams. Like, she
Yeah.
is shitting hard.
She is indicting them from the first instance of the book.
Yeah, and with Emma, she was aware that she was writing a heroine that no one was going to like except herself.
But Emma was written with an air of fun in mind.
Emma was funny, and Jane liked Emma. So that gives her a sense of care and a sense of love that, like, we are able to like Emma now by the end of the book. And in this, the rich people are outright saying, "We are better
Than
than this
everybody around
girl."
us.
Like, we cannot allow this girl to think that she is anywhere near the level of society that we're at. So they're just this book is saying the quiet parts out loud.
That is really a good way to think about it. This book is saying a lot of the stuff that's underlying her other books much more starkly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Anyway, so those are our patron study questions. And listeners, again, if you want to ask study questions on air, you should join our Patreon at the $50 tier, and you get to ask questions before every record we do. All right, so that brings me to my study questions, which my first one is, what do we make of Austen's Dickensian turn? Why start the story with a poor little girl?
I think you're right that, like, she hasn't done it yet, and it is a challenge to show a girl who's actually poor, and what's one way that her story could go.
Mhm.
We're not following her in her poor little life before. Like, we're not following her growing up in this family of 9 siblings or 8 siblings.
Yeah.
We're putting her in stark contrast to a very rich family
Yep.
where her poorness is, failing.
Yeah, and I also think that, in some ways where she's done this to foil the Bertrams.
Absolutely.
So that like as the story transpires, we have somebody there who is observing their behavior from a bit of an inside eye, but mostly an outside eye.
Yeah.
And I do think that helps kind of put the story into the context that Jane Austen wants it to be in, to have our primary point of view character. And without spoiling too much, she's not our only point of view character through the book.
Mm.
It's less of a first person experience than some of our other books.
Oh.
Um, but it gives us an in to sort of look more critically at the behavior of the upper classes.
Mhm.
Second question, how does Austen use the decision to raise Fanny separately to her advantage at the beginning of the book?
I think it just goes to show how awful the Bertrams are, that they would volunteer to take this girl on, and, like, they're doing such a nice thing, but they have to continually beat her down to make sure that she doesn't think she's one of them. Like, it just shows that, like, people in that class, it's just about having
Mhm.
the status.
Well, it also shows the fragility of that status, that they need to focus on making sure this girl feels lesser to preserve what they are.
And to make sure that other people think, "Oh, how kind of them to bring up that poor little girl," not that they think
Yeah.
that she's one of them.
And I think like it's a very important thing in this story to remember that the Bertrams need somebody to define themselves against,
Mhm.
to be who they are.
Yeah.
Do we think Fanny's better off at Mansfield Park?
That's a hard question. I mean,
Yeah.
in some ways, yes, if she was literally not getting enough food and shelter at her home.
And remember, her dad's a drunkard.
Right. There are ways in which she may be better off. However, I do not think she will be happier because obviously she was the oldest daughter of her siblings. She was friends with her siblings. She was looked up to by her siblings. Her mom loved her. She was happy and part of a family where presumably there was love and affection, but the actual lack of funds made it impossible for her to stay. So now she's in a place where she has a room and she's getting fed, but everyone hates her or thinks so lowly of her that
Yeah.
she will never belong. So I think she will be unhappy, or I think she's more unhappy than she would have been at her other home.
Yeah. And I also think it's important to note that her prospects of getting a good, suitable match are much higher at
Yes,
Mansfield Park than they are in Portsmouth.
absolutely.
So her economic situation is just much better from Mansfield Park's perspective. I think I don't want to answer this question right now.
Mhm.
I think it's something we just have to continuously ask ourselves.
Yeah.
Is Fanny better off at Mansfield Park?
What I hope for her is that she is able to get a good match and that she then is able to raise her own family out of squalor.
I will neither confirm nor deny. And my last question. So, why does Edmund stand out from his family? And what does it tell us about Edmund?
Edmund stands out because he's the best. Edmund stands out because he actually sees Fanny as a human and listens to
Mhm.
her and sees beyond the fact that she's poor to her personality, which is different than the rest of her family because they only see the fact that she's poor and that she's lesser than them and that she's
Mhm.
uneducated. and he sees that, like, she cares and she's aware of her situation and she's shy. So, this makes him different from the rest of his family and makes Fanny trust him and think of that she has a friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't wanna speak too much on our BB Edmund Bertram at this point because I don't wanna spoil anything about the book as it goes
Mhm.
forward. I would only note that keeping track of Edmund's treatment of Fanny and his seeing of her humanity over his siblings and his parents and his aunt is something to track in the book and also for us to continuously, like, observe,
Yeah.
with the character, and I don't wanna talk through too many of my thoughts at this point because I don't want to spoil
Yes.
as we go forward. So I'm gonna leave our buddy Edmund at this point,
Great.
and I'm going to go to our standbys.
Eep.
We're back at the standbys, funniest quote.
Okay, I have 4 and I'm gonna read them all really fast.
Okay.
This is the narrator. But there are certainly not so many men of large fortune in the world as there are pretty women to deserve them.
No, they're not.
So true. Lady Bertram, who was a woman of very tranquil feelings and a temper remarkably easy and indolent, would have contented herself with merely giving up her sister and thinking no more of the matter. But Mrs. Norris had a spirit of activity, which could not be satisfied till she had written a very long and angry letter to Fanny.
Yes.
I should wish to see them very good friends, and would on no account authorize in my girls the smallest degree of arrogance toward their relation, but they still cannot be equals. Ugh. And finally, it is not very wonderful that with all their promising talents and early information, they should be entirely deficient in the less common acquirements of self knowledge, generosity, and humility. Referring to Mariah
Mariah
and
and Julia.
Julia. Yeah.
Questions moving forward?
Will the cousins marry?
Who's to say?
Whomst?
Whom, Stephen? Who wins the chapters?
Edmund.
Yeah, our BB Edmund, who comes in and gives Fanny an opportunity to feel a scrap of humanity and makes her not cry every night and makes her feel more comfortable at Mansfield Park. So good on you, Edmund.
Yeah, an honorable mention to Mr. Wobbles.
Our king, absolute king. All right, listeners, that concludes this first episode of season 5 of Pod and Prejudice. For next time, we're going to read the next 3 chapters of Mansfield Park, chapters 3 through 5. And it should be fun, should be juicy. We'll see what happens. So until next time, stay proper.
And grab a glass of Sauvignon Blanc and your pug and chill out on the couch.
Sounds perfect.
Pod and Prejudice is edited by Molly Burdick and audio produced by Graham Cook. Our show art is designed by Torrance Brown. Our show is transcribed by SpeechDocs Podcast Transcription. For transcripts and to learn more about our team, check out our website at podandprejudice.com. To keep up with the show, you can follow us on social media at Pod and Prejudice. If you love what you hear, check out our Patreon to see how you can support us, buy some merch at podandprejudice.dashery.com, or just drop us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. Stay proper.